All right, let's talk about what phones should a blind person look at? What are the pitfalls to avoid when you're looking for a phone? Now we're jumping into, 2022. We're already in 2022, I should say. And so you're looking for a phone. What would be our advice for those that are just starting out wanting to get a phone, or for someone who's had a phone before, wants something better? And then what shall we tell them to look for and things to avoid?
Well, I'd say if you can, go for personally, I'd say a Samsung, but or a Google Pixel because those phones support the multiple finger talkback gestures, and that's really really handy. Um, my favorite one is to mute and unmute the speech now when I'm using Braille with my phone with a Braille display. Or if I'm going to record something with HiQ MP3 recorder or something like that, and I don't want the speech to say recording in progress and all that stuff when I've pressed record. But there are other gestures too. I don't know whether the A series Samsung phones support those gestures, but the S series ones certainly do. The other thing to consider is, do you want wireless charging or not? If you do, you want. I certainly know the Google Pixels and the Samsung S series phones support that, but the A series ones, I don't think they do. And the other thing is, if you buy a phone that costs less, I mean, you do get what you pay for. So you might find it's a slower phone and less responsive. And because your phone works harder with TalkBack, because it has to speak everything as well as showing it on the screen, any lagginess and lack of responsiveness is going to be magnified, and that could actually make your Android experience really annoying. So it's better to spend a bit more money and maybe do that by getting a phone on a contract so that you're paying for it over time rather than all in one go. If you need to do that and you can't afford to spend a lump sum on your phone, that can be a way of doing it.
It's interesting, Fee, that you mentioned that, and most especially though when it comes to that multi-finger gesture support. If you're into that multi-finger gesture support, and there are pluses and minuses, it depends on the person using the phone. But if you're someone that likes that idea of being able to, do a double tap or triple tap or whatever, and things like that, absolutely you need to get a phone that has at least Android 12, is running Android 12. Now, what I noticed that is so funny is that some phones, for some reason, whether they have Android 12 or Android 11, actually support that multi-finger gestures, but that is not the norm. And so the advice here would be that one gets a phone that is at least running Android 12 if you're looking for the ability to be able to use the multi-finger gesture support, and not a lot of phones have Android 12. But so our advice would be to look for phones, and most especially in Samsung land. Samsung has been doing a fantastic job at keeping its phones updated, even the mid-range phones. And so we're talking about phones ranging between $200 and $300. And so we're talking about mid-rangers here. And sometimes depending on the configuration, like the processor and the storage and RAM and all of that, some of those mid-rangers could run as much as $400 or $500 at the most. But so keep an eye on that. You want to look for a phone that has that multi-finger support. So make sure you get a phone that is running Android 12. Now, I know it's not everybody that would have that kind of money, because that's a lot of money when you go to other places around the world. $250 is like a lot of moolah, more than you can shake a stick at. And so if you're someone out there in that part of the world that does not have that kind of money, you probably could get by with getting something like something from Nokia that would support Android 12. Some of the new Nokia phones have that capability and would support Android 12. I know like the X20, the X50 also just got Android 12. Those ones, having Android 12 will give you that multi-finger gesture support. So those are things to keep in mind. And I know that Motorola now is supporting a lot of its phones. They've promised that they're going to be bringing the Android 12 to a lot of their phones. And we'll wait and see if that comes through starting in February. That's their timeline. They'll start rolling out Android 12 to a lot of their devices. And we'll see what really happens with Motorola. So if you're going to be getting a Moto phone, make sure it's one of those that is in the list of phones that will be getting Android 12. I think I posted that on our email and Telegram groups a little while ago, the list of Motorola phones that would be getting Android 12. And so if I could find it and dig it up and maybe put it in the show notes, we'll also put that in our show notes or link the page that you could find those phones that will be getting Android 12 so you know which one to choose. If you're going in for the Motorola phones, because Motorola phones, let's face it, they have nice, clean software. And so the only drawback has been the fact that Moto has kind of like altogether given up on giving those things the OS support updates. But of late now, they say, hey, they want to do this. So I think it's a nice welcome to see Moto or Lenovo doing that now.
So, because I remember not that long ago, there was a discussion saying that because before it was only the Pixels and the Samsung phones that support these 3-finger gestures. They've changed that now in Android 12, have they?
Yeah, well, initially, the whole idea was that any phone running Android 11 was supposed to be supporting of these multi-finger gestures. But for some reason, things didn't roll out well. It just did not work. And so they bumped it to, okay, now we want to make sure that every phone that supports Android 12 will have that gesture. And that's the reason why we jumped from TalkBack 9.1 to TalkBack 12 so that it's going to be kept in line with the OS line and things like that. And so if you get a phone that's supporting Android 12, then you should be able to use that multi-finger gestures. And I think it was a couple weeks or so ago, Austin and I were installing a custom ROM, the Lineage OS on my old Nexus 6 phone, and that's running Android 11. And to my surprise, actually, that thing supports all the most multi-finger gestures that my Pixel phones do. And so I am absolutely surprised to see that. So that's another route that one could go through, but not everybody knows how to go about doing that. But that's why we have Austin doing those series on how to roam your phone. So if you have an older phone that needs that love of getting it a Lineage so that you'll get Android 11 on it, that will support the multi-finger gestures.
Another thing to check if you're blind, if you're like me and you like sound recording, is to find out whether the phone you want to buy has stereo microphones. Because there's a lot in reviews about cameras. They never tell you really whether it has stereo microphones or not. And often the way I find out is by some of these review sites, they'll show you a short video they made on the phone. And you'll hear in that video, does the audio come across in stereo or is it just, all in the middle, mono? But it's not great really that, they talk about the cameras in so much detail, but completely neglect to mention. They'll tell you if it's got stereo speakers, but that is not always the same thing. So that's something else to be aware of. Flagship phones tend to have stereo mics, don't they? Like the Pixels and the Samsung Galaxy S series. I don't know about the A series nowadays. I bought an A40 2 or 3 years ago, and the speaker on it was terrible, and the mic was most definitely mono. But it was quite a nice small phone as a spare extra thing. I don't know on the new A series phones whether or not they have stereo mics. I know they have quite a lot of them have stereo speakers now, but I didn't go for that one because I wanted a wireless charging phone. So that could be another consideration for people who want to have their phone as a sort of on-the-go dictaphone. Because I mean, most places you go, you take your phone with you, don't you? So could be quite handy extra.
It's a very important matter that you just raised, Fee, because those of us who are blind, it all depends on what we want to do, but especially those of us who are blind, sometimes we want to hear our audio because we are dependent on audio, most especially if you're using the phone. So you want to have a phone that has good audio quality. However, if you're not necessarily, if audio really doesn't matter, if bottom firing speaker would be okay. Most phones nowadays do come with stereo, and I would put this out there. I am not going to buy any phone that costs me $300 and higher that does not have stereo speakers. If that phone does not come with stereo speakers and costing me like $300 or more, you can count on it that I am not going to buy that phone. If I'm going to buy a phone that is only monaural, then it'll have to cost me less than $200 or $200 down. But anything above that absolutely needs to have stereo speakers. And my thinking is that most phones that come with stereo speakers also have the capability to record in stereo. And the good thing about the app that you mentioned, Fee, that's the HiQ MP3 recorder, would actually allow you to check to see if that phone supports it or not. If you tap on stereo and if it doesn't support it, it will tell you this phone does not support stereo recording. And so that's a quick way to check to see if your phone would support that stereo recording or not. Try that HiQ MP3 recorder on it and enable the stereo and see what it says. Very important.
So my take on this matter is, if you're starting out with Android, do not go for the lowest of the lowest end phones, because you will think that, oh no, Android is so bad, it's not like iOS. Go for the mid-range or little flagship, but not the lowest entry level Nokia that you get. Don't go for that. Another thing is, yeah, in India there are a lot of phones and devices, but every OEM has some of the other problems. So Realme is they give updates good first year, and then they start slacking. They give updates once in 2 months, 3 months. Xiaomi has ads on their UI everywhere, so you need to disable them, and you can do it, but still there are problems. And another thing that is the most scariest thing going on is phones are exploding in India. So we had like
What?
we had 7 to 8 OnePlus not twos, the not the N10 or the other ones, but the not two explode. We had a Realme phone explode in the maybe 2 days back. So that is another scary thing going on. That's
You mean it
what is on.
actually exploded
Yeah.
completely? Did somebody get hurt?
In some cases, yeah. Some cases the phone was damaged.
I don't
That's
think I
it.
want one of those. Wow, that's awful.
Yeah, but it's not the norm though, because I mean, it's just because maybe 1 or 2 phones exploded or, 10 phones exploded
Yeah, I
does
think
not
that's too many,
mean
to be
that it's a
honest, Warren.
trend.
I don't think you want any phones exploding. Do you? I don't want my
And
phone
that could happen
exploding.
to any phone, though, to be honest.
Yeah, it could happen to any phone
But yeah,
anywhere.
but so if you're afraid, probably maybe know which ones have had that. But, generally, most of these phones are good, especially OnePlus puts out a lot of great phones and things like that. Unfortunately, now and then, it would happen to any phone, regardless of who the manufacturer is. But it's just one of those things,
Yeah, so
But
the
keep them
fireworks
exploding
recording.
phones away from your body, please.
The fireworks recording I made last night, that was definitely fireworks, and no exploding phones were included in that recording. Just to be clear.
Thank you, Fee. That's beautiful.